Welcome to a aircraft guide for Hearts of Iron 4. Today we will be going over the different types of aircraft and the roles they fulfill. So let's get started. We're going to go from left to right, and we're going to do every single plane, and we're going to do every single mission type they can do. So on the left first, we're going to start with the 44s, and then we're going to go to the jets if we need to. So the 44s, the best aircraft you can get for all of these types, pretty much, most of them. So the CAS. Basically, what you build CAS for is for doing ground attack. The other stats are tertiary, and they don't really do anything besides agility to keep the aircraft alive. So mainly you're going to need to focus on ground attack. So if we look at what the aircraft can actually do, it's basically a mix, right? So it can provide close air support, which is what it's best at. It can do a naval strike. It can do port strikes. It can do logistical bombing. It's not very good at any of the other ones, but it is good at CAS support, which is the main reason you use it for. It's going to deal damage to divisions. Now, the 44 CAS has very good range, as you can clearly see. But some upgrades that you may want to look into would be, if we pull it up, there's a variant rule. So what we're looking for here, again, depending on what you need for the aircraft, if you need more range, you're going to increase range. If you need more reliability, you're going to increase that. But the main stat you should be increasing here is going to be the attack. This is going to increase the ground attack, which is going to increase the amount of damage it's doing to divisions while they're in combat. So if you do a 5-5, this makes an aircraft perfectly viable. An increased engine would also be nice. And then if you could increase the range, but it's fine if you're not. But this is a good, if you can theoretically get this aircraft here, it's a very good design. Okay, next we're going to go over the close air support from a ship. Okay, I'm going to say something controversial here, but do not ever build these aircraft. They are completely worthless. Basically, what this aircraft is for a hyper-specific scenario. And that hyper-specific scenario is as follows. Basically, you're going to get a carrier, and for this example, we're going to have 60 fighters on it. Okay? In this example, you're going to pull this carrier out of dock. And what you're going to do with this is, if you built this 60 CAS, they're not meant for ship battles. They're terrible at it. But what they're good at is, if you sit a carrier task force outside of a province that you need to navally land on, you can set the mission and get air superiority or CAS. Now, it's not very effective. It's only going to be 60 aircraft in the air, or however many aircraft you can fit onto a carrier. At maximum, it could be 200 strike aircraft. Now, that might be assisting you in a landing if you absolutely need to, but I have not once ever actually done this, and is never really needed, because you're going to have aircraft from other places. So yeah, next we're going to look at the fighter. The fighter is basically the thing that gets air superiority and lets your ground troops fight under green air, which means they're not getting penalties to their speed and their attack modifiers. Now, the stats are good, but what we really need to look at is the agility and the speed. We're not concerned about air attack for these aircraft. So once you get a fighter and you need to upgrade to beat other fighters, you need to increase the engine, and you need to increase basically just the engine. If you can increase the reliability and the range and the weapons. Now here what we're doing is we're boosting the agility and the maximum speed. And on your screen right now is a friend gave it to me, and it's basically a breakdown of how the speed equals agility. So what you're doing here is increasing both, basically. And this makes you for a more efficient fighter that can actually fight off things. You do not need weapons. Weapons are a tertiary thing. If you can, and you want a really, the best top-of-the-line fighter you can, then you go 5 and 5. But just getting a 5 engine is perfectly fine. This will get your fighter upgraded so they can fight other fighters. We'll come back to the weapons, but basically, this aircraft is meant for air superiority and not air interception. They're two different things. So if we look, we can pull out the fighter, and you're going to set it for air superiority. You're going to put it out. It's going to gain air superiority. It's not meant to shoot down bombers. That's not what this thing is for. It can in a pinch, and if you don't want to build heavy fighters and save your research losses, that's what it can. But it's not meant to do that. Okay, next is the naval bombers. Naval bombers do what they say they do. They're good at blowing up ships. So here's some land-based naval bombers. They have good range. Not as much as the CAS and the fighters, but just a little bit less. Basically, you set them in a sea zone and you tell them to naval strike. Now, they're very good at this, and they're better than the CAS at this. And the reason they're better than the CAS is their naval attack targeting, and their naval attack is better. Compared to, 10 and 10, it is 25 and 12.5. This is why they're better at it. Now, if you put them like this and then leave them with some fighter support to make sure they don't get strafed by any other fighters that are in the sea zone, they'll do perfectly fine, and they'll blow up convoys and ships and everything else. Another thing they're good at is a port strike. So what a port strike is doing, basically, is if there's an enemy fleet in a port, we're getting into some advanced stuff here, but if there's an enemy fleet in a port and you pull up your intel, and you can see that the enemy fleet is here, what you can do is order a port strike. When you do this, the enemy is not going to be, he's not going to be notified if he's not paying attention or didn't set up the Navy right. He's not going to be notified that his ships are getting bombed. And you can kill an insane amount of ships like this. And then eventually, when his ships are at 25% health, he'll get a warning. But by then, it's almost too late for him to do anything. And you will sink a whole bunch of ships like that. So that's what naval bombers are used for. Now, we're going to do their upgrades. So for the upgrades for a naval bomber, you're going to... There's a few things you can do here. Obviously, increasing the attack is very good. The range is good. You don't need agility and speed. The aircraft it's not meant for that, and it doesn't need it because it's not going to be fighting. This is basically just to increase the survivability, but you don't need that. You need the attack and maybe the range to get to further places as you can go. Of course, you increase the reliability when you can and the engine, but mainly the attack and dump reliability into it. You're good. Now, same thing applies for the carrier fighters. Now, there's a debate, okay? The debate is whether that you want naval bombers or naval fighters on your carriers. And basically, it's going to be one or the other. The 50-50s, a lot of people have stopped doing the 50-50s because they're a halfway measure and they don't really do anything. So the reason you would want a full strike group of naval carrier bombers is basically what you're assuming is you're going to fight under a green air from land-based aircraft, and you want all of your damage to come from your carriers to be naval strikes. The flip side of that is carrier fighters. They are meant to deck wipe the enemy planes that are on their carriers and cause no damage. You do this if you're fighting in an open sea battle where there's no air support from either side. You deck wipe them, and you basically give your fleet an advantage from them not having bombers. But either choice works. They're both fine for that. Okay, now that we've finished the carrier side, we're going to do jets last, actually. Next, we're going to go to heavy fighters. Heavy fighters have very high air attack. They have a lot better air attack than the fighters. So the reason this is, it's because they're a heavy fighter. Now, what you use these heavy fighters for, and we're going to have an example here, is basically you put them up and you put them on air intercept and you leave them alone. And you're going to put your regular fighters on air superiority. So now what you're doing is you're telling the fighters, hey, I want you to shoot down fighters that come over this area, okay? And they're going to do that very effectively. What you're telling the heavy fighters is, I want you to stay on the ground until an enemy bomber comes out of the sky. Once an enemy bomber is up here, your sole target is to engage the enemy bomber and take it down. Now, they are very good at this. If you're going to be strategically bombed, you need these planes to counter it. Otherwise, you're going to be in a world of pain from the amount of fighters that you are spending to do what the heavy fighter is meant to do. But that's its primary purpose. It does have an extended range, so if you needed to, you could gain air superiority in an ocean. That is another way they are used, is for them to gain air superiority in an ocean tile. But it's not that much greater than a regular fighter. So I'm dubious on that, and they cost a lot more to produce. The costs a little bit more to produce. So, and they're worse at agility, which means they're worse at fighting. Yeah, they're a lot worse at agility and speed, which you need to gain air superiority. So only use them basically for air intercept, or if you need to do an extended range engagement to escort your bombers to a target, or if you need to gain air superiority over an ocean tile. Heavy fighter. Okay, so the heavy fighter upgrades are going to be again, you're going to want weapons at full, and you're going to want to go to max reliability on them. Okay? And this is going to drop your speed a little bit, but you're getting your weapons up so you can shoot down the bombers more effectively. You don't need the agility from this. And your range shouldn't be a problem because you're shooting them down over your own territory. Okay. Now, tactical bombers. The stepchild that nobody really likes. Basically, they're a jack of all trades, and they're bad at everything, pretty much. They're not very good at close air support. They're not very good at strategically bombing. They're not very good at naval stuff. But they can do all of them. So some small nations can, if they have the right specs, what they can do is build a whole bunch of tactical bombers, and what this allows them to do is do a whole bunch of missions in support of a country. So you can have a miner basically be an air controller, and they'll only build tactical bombers for the entire game, and they can support everything in theory, but they're not very good at it. So tactical bombers in that sense are not the best, and they do take a research slot. But if you needed to strategically bomb with them, they can. Again, it just depends. Okay, so tactical bomber upgrades would be, this one's a rather dubious one. Bombing increases everything except agility, and it's not by a lot. This is why most people don't use tactical bombers, not really. They're just kind of meh, but if I was going to do something, I would probably do this. Okay, next we're going to go to strategic bombers. They have very high air defense, very long range, and they strategically bomb, and is the only thing they can do. What do you do with strategic bombers? You grab them, and you can, this is the level 3 variant of them, so they can basically bomb pretty much anything. You set them to bomb, and you give them this. I've heard reports this does not actually work. Use it at your discretion. It doesn't seem to be working, so there's that. But yeah, you just set them to strategically bomb, and you change it if you're going to execute this at day or night, or you want to do all 3 missions. Up to you. But they're very good at that, and that's the only thing they're good at. But they're very effective at it. Some upgrades for the strategic bomber would be, basically, you just increase their bombing capacity all the way up. And you increase the reliability, and there you go. Problem has been solved. More strategic bombing equals more blown up stuff. Otherwise, if you wanted to, and you had a nuke, you could increase the range all the way up, get this thing to fly, I don't know, a suicide mission into Japan and nuke them, or wherever you needed to. That's another reason you can use them there for. Next, we're going to go over scout planes. So scout planes have an interesting mechanic. We're going to pull out a massive amount of scout planes, and we're going to put it over France. Now, as you can see, we don't see any divisions right now. If we move the time ahead, basically what scout planes do is give you division, location of divisions. And only sometimes, and not all of them. But this is helpful if you needed to see where stuff was being navally invaded from. You can set the order and look in the province, and it would help out. But that's what they're used for. The last type of plane we're going to go over is the transport, before we get to jets. Transports can do one thing. They can increase air supply. Now, this one says 19.7. There are videos on YouTube right now. This thing is completely busted and gives your troops an insane amount of supply. You get 200, 300, 400 of these planes. It's going to go to a ridiculous level. But right now it's just 19, but you can get it to stupid levels. And I've seen videos of people being surrounded in Stalingrad, and they are completely surrounded, completely cut off, and air resupply is the only thing they have, and they're fine. So they're busted right now. I would use them busted. Very effective at that. Now we're going to go over to the last types of planes. Okay. The last types of planes that you can possibly build, maybe, before the game is over, depends on how long you play for, is going to be jets. Okay, so jet aircraft. Jet aircraft, again, there's going to be a formula on your screen right now. Remember this formula. These jets go insanely fast, but they have 8 less agility than the fighter, okay? But that doesn't matter because their speed is so high, it's increasing their agility. Now, this is why jets are better than regular fighters. Some people don't believe that, but it is true. They're just better fighters. There's a minor thing here. They cost double the manpower. I mean, I guess it's not really going to matter at that point. Upgrades for the jet fighter. Just increase the engine and the reliability. That's it. You're good. Even better fighter. Maybe range if you need it. And the last type is going to be a tactical bomber. There is a strategic jet bomber in 1950. If you get to this point and you can build this bomber, I am actually impressed that you stayed in the game that long. Build it. Just build it and upgrade the strategic bombing. That's it. The tactical bomber right here is just it is a superior version of the tactical bomber, but it's not very good, as you can see. It loses range really bad, and it's not really worth it to build it, honestly. Just stick with the strategic or tactical. Honestly, it's not worth it. Not that much. But it is there, and it is an option that you can take. But again, I wouldn't build it. It's pretty bad, especially in the range department. Even if you just compare it to its own tier 3 aircraft, it's bad. It's really bad. Its inner ring is it, and then the outer ring. But yeah, some upgrades you could technically throw on this plane would be bombing and get the reliability up. Or you probably need the range, because the range is really bad on it. Yeah. Okay. Other than that, there's 2 last things we're going to basically go over. It is this no retreat and mission in day and night. Basically what this is telling you is they operate at 25% strength or 50% strength whenever they're fighting. So if they go down to 50, they'll stop flying. If they go down to 25 aircraft out of the 100, then they'll stop flying. Just leave this on no retreat, it's fine. This is to execute missions at day and night. This depends what you're trying to do. There are 2 missions that are flown in the daytime, and there's 1 flown at night. It's self-calculated. So you can fly 3 missions in total. I and pretty much every other player leaves them on fly all 3 missions. Now, there's a thing you can do if you have if you take the doctrine of strategic bombing. So this doctrine, you go down this left side, so you can reduce a nighttime strategic bombing penalty, and only then. And then you get the Air Force Advisor Night Ops. You combine all of this, you can fly missions at night and strategically bomb at very high effective rate for you and not a very high effective rate in return for the enemy. That's one thing you can do with it. Like the only reason I would actually fly missions at night. Pretty much. Okay, so with that out of the way, there's one last thing. It's called radar. So I'm basically just going to turn on instant construction, and we're going to boost our radar to a stupid level. Okay, so this is level 6 radar. As you can see, it's ridiculous. Level 6 radar gets you a lot of information on the enemy. As long as basically it acts like a scout plane. Radar gives you information on the enemy and can get rid of some of this fog of war. It has to do it over time, of course, but that's what it's there for. It's also very, 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 very helpful for increasing your shoot-down rate of enemy aircraft in your own provinces, and air support or air intercept and air superiority. So it's good there. Okay, so today we went over aircraft types and their missions that they can do. If you found this guide helpful, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. There should be a link in the description that goes to my Discord. You can go in there and ask me questions. Otherwise, on screen right now is a video that goes over the air doctrine. It's basically an air doctrine guide. It goes over the air doctrine and the spirits from NoStepBack. Otherwise, have a nice day.